some of the laws in Texas. Some of the things that people want addressed, and something that's a big deal to a lot of people leaving California, is things like gun rights, vaccination rights, and many
Yep.
other freedoms that are important to people that we're losing here in California. Can you speak to those, please?
Yeah. So as it still stands, I mean, in Texas, you still have the right as a parent to not have your children be vaccinated. I mean, yeah, every school district wants you to have it done, but I mean, there are forms we can fill out and have and say, for our religious reasons or for our just own beliefs, we don't want to have that done. Um, the gun part, I got to tell you, you know, I, I heard a long time ago that 3/4 of the United States military comes from below the Mason-Dixon line, and we're better armed than most militaries. So I don't obviously I won't speak to gun reform because that's a really touchy subject. I mean, and it's also Texas is a Texas. Let me put it this way: Texas probably would secede if there was ever something passed where the Second Amendment went away. I mean, um, most people don't know that Texas actually has the ability to secede if they ever wanted to. When we went from being a republic to a state, they kept that in the constitutional rights that at any point in time it would take a I don't know how that process would work, but it's always been in the bylaws that Texas could secede at any point in time if they felt like they didn't align themselves again, which, gosh, I'm not saying that's what we should do by any means. I'm not saying that's something anybody threats about, but I mean, I can tell you right now that guns are a really big deal in Texas. I mean, um, just I mean, we're an open carry state. We're not just a concealed state. We're an open carry state. I mean, you can go get your license and you can carry and show it off if you want. I mean, and honestly, I know this is gonna maybe rub some folks wrong, but if you know that every car has the potential to have a gun in it, you're a lot less likely to do something stupid. I mean, I'm not talking about driving, rage stuff. I'm talking about just in general making a really poor decision, knowing that I can't tell you how many women I know that are good friends of mine that I associate with business, church, family, friends that have more guns on them at church than I do. That person may have two handguns in it, and so, there's a lot of political things you can talk about that probably would stir a lot of people up, but really when it comes down to it, um, you know, uh, Texas is probably, when it comes to guns, is always going to be on the forefront of fighting everything when it comes to, yeah, that's not going to, I mean, we had county sheriffs, district judges that during our previous administration, when they were making, banning, assault rifles, that were just straight out saying to the press, not in this county. They can come down and try if they want, but I'm not enforcing that in my county, and I'm not enforcing that in this state. And so, like I said, the one thing about Texas is Texans are fanatical. And it's important to know that Texans are fanatical about being Texans. And if they truly believe in something, good luck, trying to take that away from them. They're not going to go to, my granddad used to always say, I'm going to die standing up I'm going to die standing up. I'm not going to die on my knees. I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees. And so I think what you'll find is there's a lot of people that truly believe that to their core. The vaccination part is obviously one of those situations that I feel like it's probably controversial just about everywhere. I think now, especially with COVID, I feel like we're going to see another great push from Texans saying we don't want to be vaccinated with anything. Like, you're not going to. It doesn't matter what formed or what caused that pandemic. Everyone has their own opinions, but it sure as heck isn't going to be injected into me by the government, type thing. And I think that that's probably going to be something that we'll start to see. I don't think Texans got lazy about that, but I think in general, most families in Texas were fine with some flu vaccinations and some general things. But I think more than ever, you're going to find that, the cautiousness of that, and you're probably going to see that as a big factor on probably our next electoral ballot as state policies, that we're going to see that become probably something that will be voted on, whether or not. I think we'll go back in the way that you already still have as a resident the right to say no. It's just like right now. I mean, if you think about what just happened in our country, It was all a big suggestion. Nobody said you can't leave your house. It was suggested that you don't leave your house, but a lot of people took it and didn't leave their house. And that's the scary part, is that someone can just make a strong suggestion and people take that as that's the law. And I feel like, probably where it got maybe a little lax over the last couple of years is people just kind of went along with, oh yeah, it's no big deal. We'll just go get those vaccinations. And there's still quite a few people I know. I mean, I know a lot of people in my own church and people that are in the area that I live in that just sign the waivers every year and say, we're not doing it. And those kids are still coming to school and they're not being told you can't be publicly educated. But I think after this, you're going to probably even see more of a pushback even than it was before. Of the one things Texans will fight for is their ability to have choice. And so if that ever comes to the point where they feel like that's being taken away, I think that's when it's like a dangerous rattlesnake. The only rattlesnake that's really dangerous is the one that's backed into a corner, and I feel like you're probably going to see more of a spirit of Texans in the next couple of years that are we're not going to be backed into corners, because even our own governor has just basically said, okay, the rest of the government can basically shut down and collapse their economy if they want. We're not doing it here. I mean, there's 28 million people that live in the state of Texas, and we've had less than 1,600 deaths, and we basically almost shut down our whole economy over something that, yes, is a very, very, very serious thing and absolutely should be taken precaution. But in general, we can't. I feel like if we had another weird wave or a breakout, I think you'd see Texas take a much different stance this time around than they did this last time. As far as even saying, yeah, that's not going to happen. I mean, we're going to work. If you don't want to go to work, don't go to work. But we're not shutting things down because it's a suggestion. Any more suggestions? So, and I know that's probably pretty controversial, and I hate that. I hope that didn't rub anybody the wrong way. I just feel like the majority of what I hear from people now is, even business owners is, yeah, there are local business owners that literally, quit offering health insurance to a lot of their employees during COVID to keep them employed, to make sure small business owners, not corporations, but small business owners that wanted to keep it going as long as they could with their employees and making sure people were employed. And, in those situations, I got to be honest, I'll applaud that, because quite frankly, they were doing what they could to make sure other families were being taken care of. I mean, I know the health part kind of stinks, but, it's better than being unemployed altogether because your company goes out because you can't service the community. And one of the things that I love is Texas is so pro entrepreneur. So many of our phenomenal cities and so many of our areas are run by small entrepreneurial businesses that our communities rallied around. I mean, from restaurants to shopping, where, so many of our local restaurants, the places we'd never want to see go away, rallied really quick and found a way to do everything curbside, do everything pickup. So many of our local restaurants started putting together food menus for a week that you could come pick up and get food. And our communities guys rallied around that. I mean, they were fighting to make sure those people would not go away. And in general, it was really cool to see. It was really cool to see how many small businesses during this time period in Texas didn't close. I mean, yeah, we've had our fatalities throughout business, and we've seen some, but to be able to see so many that have survived, that makes me as proud of being a Texan as almost anything, is to see the fight to not become all corporate and make sure that mom and pop popcorn store in downtown McKinney stays open because they've been here for 65 years. Wouldn't that have been a shame if that had been the death of that store that had been there for 65 years of COVID? So we all found ways to order and send people other parts of the country their stuff and have it shipped to them, so they still had business and commerce. So cool part, and like I said, the gun part, I doubt you'll ever see really change. I really do. I mean, I can't imagine. I can't even imagine a Texas without guns.
I may be wrong, but I understand that the Texas State House, or the Texas Capitol, is the only capital in the U.S. that faces away from Washington, D.C. The other 49 face toward Washington, D.C.
That's correct. It's the only state that the state flag highs at. I mean, it's the only state where the state flag flies at equal height of the American flag.
I didn't know that.
They fly at the same height.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, are there any cities in your area that are sanctuary cities?
Not in DFW. There are cities that have tried. I mean, in general, it's, I mean, obviously Governor Abbott's made it very plain that we are not going to be a sanctuary city state. I mean, there are certain cities that have tried within their own local government to try to implement certain pieces, but a declared sanctuary city, no.
And then what about homelessness? I mean, that's a massive problem here in California. In the Bay Area here where I live, some of them go for miles along railroad tracks and stuff like that. Can you just kind of speak to that? Again, I know it's a touchy issue. There's a lot of reasons for it, but and those people typically need help, but we don't want to, again, move from a real problem to another place that might be a real problem. So can you touch on that?
No. So yes, if you're in downtown Dallas, you'll see a little bit of homelessness. I mean, I will tell you that most of your suburb cities and all of the areas, even along freeways, I don't even know what kind of percentage I would throw it at versus California, because I've visited California a lot in the last couple of years. We still have some family members there, and the alarmingness of that. I mean, it wasn't like that 13 years ago when we left. So it's when I go back, it blows my mind. Yeah, I mean, I think Metro Dallas and Fort Worth, just like any other metro city that have millions of people, I mean, you're going to see some. I will tell you the one thing that most people comment on right away, from the minute I pick them up from the airport and start doing our tours to the time I take them back. Two things come up every time. Gosh, we haven't seen any real homeless. We haven't seen any homeless people, and there's no graffiti anywhere. I mean, anywhere. You can be downtown Dallas and you will see very little, if any, graffiti anywhere. Most people don't, you used to have the signs in the 70s and 80s and even in the 90s that were, talked about don't mess with Texas. And people thought that was kind of a mantra of Texas. Well, that was really more about littering and graffiti. If you're caught littering in the state of Texas, or you're caught graffiti, it's an automatic $1,500 fine or imprisonment. So it's not tolerated. And so obviously you can't stop what people do, and you can't stop what certain people will do, but in general, you won't see a lot of it, if any, like I said. And if you do see it, it'll be cleaned up by the city very quick. It's not left to be there. There is an unfortunate whole part of this homeless issue that California is dealing with. We're nowhere. We're not even. I don't even. If I would say for every homeless person there is in California, there's probably one in Texas. I mean, I would probably throw it against that kind of statistic, because it's such a rarity. I mean, like I said, if you go down to downtown San Antonio or Houston or downtown Dallas or Fort Worth, you will see a homeless population in numbers of like 1 and 2, as opposed to cities, villages, kind of comparing it to Hooverville back in the Great Depression. I mean, so many of those different areas of different parts of our country had those populations of full encampments of people that just less fortunate. And so that's not something that I can't even tell you the last time I live in McKinney, obviously, but I can't even tell you the last time I saw someone in Collin County that was homeless. I mean, that I can't recall a time in the last couple of months that I've seen someone that I was like, oh, someone, homeless guy on the side of the road, whatever. You just don't really see it.
I got it also not because of they go to jail or anything. It sounds like there might be a support system for people like that.
Yeah. Honestly, I mean, this is going to, in Texas, if you don't have a job, it's because you actually just don't want one. I mean, in Dallas, Fort Worth, especially. So it's really hard for any one person to say, I'm here because I can't, there's not work, or I'm not qualified. I know it sounds too good to be true, but it really, I mean, our unemployment rate, even through COVID, it has never even through COVID, most of Collin County hasn't got above 5.5% unemployed. I mean, there's 2 million people live in Collin County. I mean, so I would say, yes, there are phenomenal organizations here that do a very good job of taking care of people that are in need. For instance, northern Collin County, in a city called McKinney, I mean, where I live, there is a group of businessmen that years and years ago bought a bunch of old hotels on the east side of town and refurbished all of it, built a community center, and it's called the Samaritan's Inn. So families that are out of work absolutely can live there. A full family can live there for 6 months while they're getting a job. There's food there. There's educational opportunities from there. It's not created to create a lifestyle. It's created to be an assistance for people in need. And really all over Dallas Fort Worth. I mean, one of the things that's interesting about Dallas Fort Worth in general is, yes, there's a lot of wealth here, but you also have a lot of wealth with big hearts. I mean, people in general here are very generous and very willing to help a friend in need, and I mean, honestly, I don't know that, it seems like, in my opinion, the different states that have legalized certain substances have a bigger issue with homelessness. And in Texas, we have not legalized, and we don't even have the legalized medical facilities all over the place. I mean, I don't know if that's going to ever happen. If it's not going to happen, it's probably an issue that's probably not even worth tackling, because it's something that in general at some point, probably nationally, will be accepted, which I don't know how that's going to affect Texas, but it seems to me that the issues that have really arisen nationally, not just in California, but nationally, I mean, you go down to downtown Denver now, and I mean, Denver, God, what a gorgeous town. And over the last 3 years, it's been transformed in so many ways based off of that same topic. And it's sad. It seems like wherever that trend is going is really where that population may trend to show up as well. There's still a lot of counties in Texas, Garrett, I mean, Terry, that are dry counties. I mean, the one thing that one thing that a lot of our California families have called me about on Sundays. You lived here for a little bit, Terry, so you know this. You can't buy alcohol in Texas until 12:30 on Sunday afternoon, because you don't drink before you go to church. You can drink after you go to church, but you got to go to church first, right? So, I mean, there's still just things like that you can't go into a restaurant and get a beer before Sunday at 12 o'clock. I mean, there are certain things like that are so morally driven into the roots of people's, backgrounds. I don't know. I think I'd be telling tall tales out of school if I said that Texas will never legalize, marijuana. I don't know that to be the case, but it certainly has been fought, and it hasn't won. Hadn't even come anywhere clear. I mean, on our last couple, elections, hasn't even come anywhere near being legalized. I mean, it's been fought really hard. So, and I think in general, that's been fought hard, not because people don't believe in a medical usage of it. They just don't want it to become a rabid problem in their state. And it's like once you open that door, I mean, I don't know that Denver right now, if they could reverse that door and close that door, wouldn't have not reversed that door 3 years ago. But now it's Pandora's box. So, I know that that's a little bit more in depth of what you asked, but I mean, in general, that's kind of really, hit on that question. We don't really have that type of, I mean, even in border towns that you drive through, you don't see that level of vagrancy or homelessness, even in a town like El Paso, which, I mean, literally on one side of the freeway are tire homes, on the other side of the river, and then you've got Mercedes dealerships on the other side of the freeway in El Paso. You don't even see it there quite as frequently as you may see it in different parts of the country.
Well, Josh, this has been great. I really appreciate you taking the time to meet with us today. Hey, any closing thoughts, or anything you'd like to add to what we've talked about today?
Well, making a transition and relocating, regardless of where you guys go, I mean, it's a tough decision to make as a family, right? I mean, it really is. I mean, I know that even leaving California when I left 13 years ago was a difficult decision, because in general, you have friends, family, you're leaving behind life as you know it. And it's kind of like leaving the East Coast back in the 1800s when the Oklahoma land rush was going. You were going for better opportunities, and people packed up their whole lives to do that. I remember family members of mine in the early 1900s that left West Texas to come to Bakersfield because there were better jobs. It's a scary thing to do. I mean, I hate to say that it's just all roses and rose-colored glasses, because it just simply isn't. I mean, it's in general, that is a really, really tough thing to have to do in your life. We're happy to help. We want to help in any possible way we can. and you're going to find a lot of people in other states, other real estate companies or other companies that truly do have a good heart that want to help people. You know, we'd love to chat. We'd love to help in any way we can, just, you know, answer questions. And I'm thankful for you, Terry. I mean, because in general, you're taking the bull by the horns in your own state and saying, hey, there are people going to be leaving, and so let's help find great solutions, you know. And you know, obviously both of us, there's an entrepreneurial side to this for us as well. But in general, you know, I love my state. You know, I think once a Texan, always a Texan. It's hard to get that out of your blood, you know. My dad, my granddad used to always say, if you wore out a pair of boots in West Texas, that you'll always be a part of West Texas, you know. And there's an entrepreneurial spirit, but also just a spirit of, you know, the spirit of patriotic freedom that is just so much fun to watch new families experience, and then really adapt and get it, you know, assimilated so fast. I guess the one thing I'd leave with is Texas is not a, I know we mentioned it again a little bit earlier. Texas is a lot more friendly and welcoming than you may think. And it does have a lot of great opportunities. And with every great opportunity, whether it's business or whether it's financial or family, there's always a risk in that. You know, what we're trying to do is decrease percentages of risk and increase opportunity of success. You know, my family cattle brand is the Plus X. No one knows why my great grandfather actually had the Plus X. We don't. But I've turned that into my real estate motto of adding and multiplying value to families to help them create the opportunities they're looking for. And I don't know why, like, it's just a fun thing to be able to have that as my family brand, and then be able to use that and make my own spin and say, you know, this is in the real estate side, this is what we want to do, is we want to add and we want to multiply in the relationships and the value that we bring to the table. And like I said, whether that's, if you're moving to any part of Texas, we'd love to at least be able to give you the right person or give you the right connection so that you're welcomed. And so that, I mean, that, just like California, there's thousands and thousands of realtors, and there's thousands and thousands of people in California that do something a couple times a year and call themselves real estate professionals. There's those of us that do this on a regular basis that really understand what you're about to walk through, and in general can give you a lot of information and a lot of opportunity to change and maybe help avoid some pitfalls that you may fall into, not knowing they're pitfalls, because it matters what moving company you use. It can save you a whole lot of money. You know, we can tell you the right spots to stop in between Texas and here and spend the night, in places that your kids would enjoy, places that you should stop and visit with your kids when you're on the way here, just so you don't miss out on some really great treasures at Carlsbad Caverns or at the Grand Canyon or at the Blue Hole outside of Santa Rosa, Mexico. You know, there's just all the way down to, you know, what's the best barbecue place the first night you get here, you know, and most likely we're going to provide that first barbecue meal for you at your house when you get here. So anyways, in general, like I said, one of the things we really want to focus in on with families that are moving is we're not necessarily going to find your house right off the bat. We'd prefer to spend time with you, taking you in and outside of communities so you realize, oh, you know, so you get a really good feel, because it's scary. I mean, we got the luck of the draw and threw a dart and ended up in a town that we love. That doesn't happen for everybody. And so minimizing that risk and helping families is really what we're passionate about.
That's great, Josh. Well, thank you very much. I'll post your contact information at the end of the video.
That'd be great.
I'll also post a link to your relocation guide too, so that people have access to that. And I know that people will be reaching out to you, and I really appreciate you being in the group. You've been such a great help. And I know that you will be helping a lot of people leave California for Texas and for the Fort Worth area.
Well, we're honored to do it. Sorry to have to. The great part is we're honored to do it. The hard part is, you know, there's always that emotional terror for those that are leaving, you know, and that's, like I said, it's one thing for someone to move because a job is transferring. It's another thing for move when someone feels like they have no choice but to move. And that's the hard part for me at times, is I didn't have to make that move based off of feeling like I had to. I did it because I wanted to. And now I see so many of my fellow Californians that are doing it that feel like more of a desperation. So, you know, God bless y'all. I mean, we're willing to help any way we can. And like I said, if you're moving to Oklahoma or Louisiana or any place, Tennessee, as a broker owner, I know a lot of different broker owners, different parts of the country. So if I can open up a door and at least introduce you to someone that'll have a nice smiling face for you and at least, treat you like a human as opposed to a dollar sign, I'll be more than happy to do it. So
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks again, Josh.
awesome. Thanks, Terry. Appreciate it.